in and in. When you drive in, I guess to the private land, as they keep saying it was, there was no overt sign saying that you're entering federal property or a wildlife reserve or anything to that notion. But regardless, I digress. So we're driving around and we're wondering where this group of people went. You know, where did they go? Were they contacted by Border Patrol? And while we were driving around, we actually saw people in the back of a Border Patrol truck. I guess they had recently been picked up. And while we were doing our rounds, we actually ran into a family. And here's what happened when our reporter, Don Salazar, had a chance to speak to them.
Are you from Mexico?
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Yeah, El Salvador.
Everyone?
Todos.
Yes.
¿Vienen juntos?
We came together.
Okay.
Todos.
¿Qué tanto?
How long was your journey to get here?
Venimos como 2
Took
meses.
us 2 months. We were working and working on the way up until we got here,
Hasta que llegamos
where
aquí
we're
donde
at.
estamos. Nomás que
We
queremos
just want to
llegar, pero
complete
ya-
the journey,
ya estamos cansados,
but we're
con
already
sequía,
tired and
hambre,
thirsty,
todo.
hungry.
Yeah.
No los ubicamos bien aquí. Queremos ver si
Eventually we'll
llegamos
get
bien
where we
a
want to
donde
go,
queremos ir, pero se nos está
but it's
poniendo
getting impossible.
imposible, ¿ah? Esa es la cosa.
So they're tired and hungry. Trying to get to their destination, but they want to take a break. You know, kind of hot out here. Want to drink some water.
And that was just on day one. We decided to go back a second day, and like the first day, we ran into a lot of officers out there very inquisitive about our activities. And while they were questioning us, a raft comes across from the Mexico side to the US side. And if you look real close to this footage, you can actually see a guy jump out of the boat and swim back to the Mexico side. I'm not exactly sure what his motivation was in doing that, but it definitely did happen. And it's not just people coming over the border, they have drugs, of course, the issue of human trafficking, all these other things that the Border Patrol have to deal with. And long story short, if you take the interviews we did with the emergency manager or the Border Patrol agents or the ICE agents when we went out there 2 years ago, the main consensus between all those people is at some point, the focal point goes back to the McAllen bus station. Now, this is where it gets a little dicey. Not everybody agrees on how the people are provided with their travel vouchers, but they pretty much agree that they get some type of funding or ticket courtesy of somebody else to travel around the United States of America, because the people we met came from El Salvador, and whatever provisions they left with ran out a very long time ago. So they had no food, no water. I'm sure if they had any money, they had spent it by that point just to get there. They had been traveling for 2 months. It's a very long journey. The group we saw was about 20 people, men, well, one man, if I recall correctly, and also mostly women and children. So the only thing they had at the point was the clothes on their back. So somebody is providing these people with travel vouchers. So they go to the McAllen bus station. There's also a church nearby. They help them out with food, clothing, maybe put a little money in their pocket possibly, and then they go about in the country. And the big issue with this is that when these people are sent around the country, very few of them come back for the actual court hearing, for the immigration hearing. And why would you? You travel 2 months, you're not gonna go all the way back to McAllen, Texas, just so you can be sent back to wherever you came from. And one of the things to note about this is the people we talked to, the Border Patrol agents or whoever else, they told us that when people come from Mexico, they usually just send them back across the border, pretty much a catch and release type of program. But when they come from further away, such as El Salvador, Guatemala, someplace like that, they're allowed to stay temporarily, pending their court hearing. As I already stated, very few people show up to. So this is the thing that's going on at the border. And while we do know this is going on, it's always somewhat in our mind. And just think about this, as sad as these stories are, to see these people who come all the way from Guatemala or wherever else they may be coming from, what are the situations in their country that are forcing them to leave? Because it's not just people coming from Latin America. People are coming from Syria. People are coming from China, as the Border Patrolman told us in our interview. And also, we know the people who are coming from Central, South America. Are you getting people from other countries as well?
Most definitely. We're getting, you name it, we're getting them. Chinese, India, the Middle East, all over. If they're out there, they're coming through this southern border.
And when you think about people coming from these foreign countries, if I lived in Pakistan or I lived in Syria or some other place, Yemen, where they have these routine drone strikes, blowing up hospitals and churches, blowing up wedding parties, I'd probably want to move out of there too. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we do put out blanket amnesty, make everybody currently here a United States citizen. What are we going to do tomorrow to stop people from coming here? And a lot of people would be happy to stay in their own country if they had a steady economy, or they didn't have to worry about war or famine or these other things that are going on around the world. I think that's a much larger issue that needs to be addressed, just like the issue of immigration. You can find more reports on INFOWARS.com.
The CFR says now is the time for the elite to rise up against the mindless and ignorant masses. And this is their final push for a total UN takeover of America. Here's John Bound.
Something wicked this way comes. The elites have been backed into a corner by the Brexit and the potential downfall of the EU. Populism is sweeping the globe, while a still unseen event between the globalists' arrogant and criminal one-sided policies against the law-abiding freedom of the average American is reaching a breaking point. In an opinion piece posted today on the Wall Street Journal, former Secretary of State, war criminal, and New World Order cheerleader Henry Kissinger put it bluntly to any of the elites listening. Kissinger wrote, "The multilateral approach based on open borders for trade and the movement of peoples is increasingly being challenged. And now an act of direct democracy intended to reaffirm the status quo has rendered a damning verdict. However, challenging this expression of popular sentiment, ignoring the concerns it manifests, is a path to greater disillusionment. The Brexit vote has unleashed the anxieties of two continents and of all those who rely upon the stability that their union of purpose provides. To inspire the confidence of the world, Europe and America must demonstrate confidence in themselves. As far as confidence in Congress and the executive branch goes, the average American has been fed up for years, and the elites Mr. Kissinger would pander to are completely clueless." Paul Joseph Watson writes, Council on Foreign Relations member James Traub argues that the elite need to rise up against the mindlessly angry, ignorant masses in order to prevent globalization from being derailed by the populist revolt that led to Brexit and the rise of Donald Trump. Traub's tone is so contemptuous, he even describes the pro-Trump Republican base as know-nothing voters and sneers at voters in Poland for being concerned about values and tradition, while stressing that the push for further globalization will pit poor and non-white and marginal citizens against working-class and middle-class whites, whom he describes as angry fist-shakers. Well then, how do Traub and his tiny number of delusional ilk intend on rising up against the so-called ignorant masses? Killer robots? The UK's Sun newspaper claims terrorists are actively seeking to build a deadly army of intelligent killer robots. Yeah, right. Terrorists building the Terminator. But the Sun continues. That's the terrifying claim from a piece of authoritative research published by the United Nations, which recently held an urgent meeting to discuss the threat posed by murderous machines. Experts from dozens of countries convened in Geneva to consider the grim implications of lethal autonomous weapon systems, laws, which are capable of killing without needing to have a human at the controls. And therein lies the elite's go-to plan. The United Nations Army, be they terrorist robots, child-raping soldiers, radical Islamists, or simply your local city council member. By hook or by crook, the United Nations socialist tsunami known as Agenda 2030, with a 15-year master plan to transform the world, is underway. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch announced the Strong Cities Network at the UN in New York in September of 2015. Basically, a cancerous globalization of your neighborhood police force with its sights set on violent extremists, i.e. constitutionalists, aka Americans. A handful of cities have begun the transformation, as Alex Newman of the New American writes, wherein control of local law enforcement is handed over to a London-based think tank called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. It's not just any old alliance that is behind the ISD. A quick search of the group's website reveals the identity of its board of trustees, a cadre of internationalists that is second to none. Among the 14 board members is found Charles Guthrie, Baron Guthrie of Craigiebank, a member of the House of Lords, who currently acts as a non-executive director of global financier N.M. Rothschild & Sons, and represents the firm's interest on the Trilateral Commission. Guthrie also spoke at the 2011 meeting of the Bilderberg Group. Meanwhile, the UN is stockpiling billions of dollars worth of food and vaccines in the United States for what exactly? Michael Snyder of the Economic Collapse blog writes, an NPR report indicates that most of the supplies are medical in nature, and this includes millions of doses of vaccines. Could it be possible that the government is anticipating a major pandemic in our near future? And according to Reuters, global demand for food has already been surging, and one new report indicates that it won't be too long before we could see a doubling of food prices. And with all of this comes a recent posting of UN vehicles being transported through Virginia. Yes, debunking troll, we are all aware that the 16,600-pound vehicles designed to withstand gas attacks and small arms fire are manufactured in the United States, and this could possibly be much ado about nothing. But sightings of the transportation of UN vehicles all across the United States have been an ongoing occurrence. With the expanding erosion of the Bill of Rights, independence from tyranny is reaching pre-American Revolution levels. The globalists, a self-serving handful of sociopathic billionaires that have long since taken possession of the neural centers of the globe's economic brain, i.e. the central banks, will stop at nothing to dominate the mechanisms they have put into place to ensure that the masses are enslaved. And what about those angry, fist-shaking masses? Undoubtedly, this forthcoming July 4th celebration will ring true with an ominous tone within the hearts and minds of the descendants of the founders that warned us this day was coming. John Bound for INFOWARS.com.
Hey, that's going to do it for tonight's broadcast. The INFOWARS Nightly News will return tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Don't forget to check out the Alex Jones Show, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., actually till 3 p.m. because we have that hour overdrive, and that is Monday through Friday. You all have a good night. We'll see you back here tomorrow. See ya.